Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again. And today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So today we're talking about Bullseye. This was a card that I wasn't super duper excited for initially, but after putting some homebrews together, trying some cool stuff I saw other people make, and just getting some hands-on experience with the card, I have to say this card is actually way more fun and quite a bit better than I was initially expecting. So today I'm giving you the best deck for me from my day one experience with Bullseye. This list originally comes from a high ladder player, Jimmy Dickens, great deck builder, and the #1 Helicarrier enjoyer I know. And he built this before Bullseye, back when Victoria Hand came out, but he was using Corvus kind of as the placeholder until we got access to Bullseye. And having played the deck before and after Bullseye, I gotta say, Bullseye, very, very big upgrade to this style of deck. Probably the most common question I got on stream yesterday, which is unsurprising, is, hey, what do you think of Bullseye? Is this a card worth picking up? And to provide a quick overview on my initial impressions of the card, basically boils down to this. I tried out a lot of different decks. Notably, I avoided the traditional Dracula discard stuff, since I just wasn't as interested in that. I think he's okay there, but I still think maybe the best version of that deck is the Malekith version, and Bullseye obviously does not synergize very well with Malekith, because you don't want him popping up at the end of the game. So you could still run him in Dracula discard, but you can't be running Malekith in there because of their anti-synergy. I'm sure it's okay, but I don't think it's the best way to use this card. This is the one that really stood out to me, Helicarrier discard. So how does this deck end up working out? The main things we're trying to leverage in this deck are Swarm, its interaction with things like the Collector and Victoria Hand to buff it up so we can go really wide on the board, and Bullseye just really helps us be able to do that even better, because it gives us more ways to get more swarms while also pumping the Collector more and getting some negative affliction on the opponent's board as well. Now, I've never been much of a Helicarrier believer, but the card has actually done quite a bit of work. It has synergy with Victoria Hand in if you discard it, you get a bunch of Helicarrier stuff, it grows the Collector. All the stuff you get from the Helicarrier is grown by Victoria Hand. You could even just discard it again to keep pumping up your Morbius. Maybe you get some 1 or 0 cost cards and you can throw them away with Bullseye. There's just a lot of inherent synergy with this deck. And the big thing for me that I noticed that Bullseye gave this deck access to is before Bullseye, it felt like, you have a few activators here for your swarms, your Blade, your Colleen, Gambit, Grandmaster to rebuy a discard effect. But it really felt like this deck needed another way of continuing to chain these swarms. And that is exactly what Bullseye ended up doing, and it made it feel a lot better. The stats here are from top 50 Infinite. I ended up going 19 and 11 with it, plus 33 cubes, which is about 100 SP in an hour or so. I'll have a link in the description to the VOD if you want to check out some gameplay with it. But yeah, this is the one that really impressed me the most with Bullseye. It's also the most fun I've had with a day one deck in quite some time, because the Helicarrier adds just such an interesting amount of variance to the gameplay in terms of getting to play these cards that you just wouldn't otherwise, and it makes it tricky for your opponent to play around. Also, just the classic combo of getting a few swarms in hand, setting up a MODOK into Bullseye on turn 5 is just really devastating. You have a bunch of swarms to play on the final turn. If you have Victoria Hand, those are 0/5s, and Bullseye is essentially making them even better because he's using them to provide affliction onto your opponent and get even more of them, while also pumping things like your Morbius and your Collector. I do want to mention some possible substitutions as well. That was a question that came up a lot yesterday too. I feel like a lot of people are missing Scorn from the discard lists. I think she's coming back in March, so if you're a big discard enjoyer, keep an eye out for her then. But in the meantime, I do think you can get by with replacing her. Some suggestions that I think can work are things like Meek or maybe Proxima Midnight. Just more stuff that has good synergy with the discard. Or another option you could potentially try is something like Dakin. Gets you another thing in hand for the Bullseye, is a pretty decently statted 3-drop if you do discard the Dakin Shard. So yeah, I've really liked this deck. It was a lot of fun. It was surprisingly effective. And if you're looking for a bit of a different way to play discard, this was definitely the standout all-star of the day for me. I did try quite a few other lists with this, again, mostly unconventional stuff, but I tried like a C3 deck. I tried a Surfer deck. Those were really, really bad. The C3 one was very fun, but not good at all. The Surfer one was even worse. So I do think there might be some less conventional ways to use this card, but those are definitely not it. Some other places I did see that made sense for this card, and I saw people and myself seeing some positive results with, were in a Dracula dump style deck where you have a bunch of 1-drops, you're trying to dump out your hand, and then you get Dracula to discard a big thing like the Red Hulk or the Infinite. You have cards like War Machine and Black Swan to help enable that. Bullseye was a pretty good redundancy piece there, making it so that if you ended up with a Ebony Maw stuck in your hand, you could just toss it away, or maybe you don't find your Black Swan. Then you can just throw your 1-drops away and chuck them at your opponent and guarantee you still get those good discards for Dracula. And then another place I ended up liking it was a no Dracula, no Apocalypse Dakin discard with Frigga as a way to copy up a Victoria hand or a second Dakin. Felt pretty strong there. I don't think Bullseye is going to necessarily be bad in regular Dracula discard. I ran into quite a few people playing that list and it seemed to work fine for them. But I'm not convinced it's going to be the best way to play that deck. Maybe it's close, maybe it's not that far behind, but it doesn't feel like that was meaningfully making that deck a whole ton stronger than some of the other options it has already had. So personally, I would recommend trying out some more different things in that space that really can try and leverage Bullseye to his full effect, because it is a very strong effect and quite a bit stronger than I initially expected it to be personally. So yeah, that's the deck. I hope you enjoy it. I'll have a link in the description if you want to copy it into the game to check out for yourself. And again, if you want to see it in action, check the VOD linked in the description below. As always with new cards, my rule of thumb is pretty simple. It never hurts to give it a few days and see how things shake out. There have definitely been times when cards seem really good on the first few days, but as time goes on, they kind of lose their appeal a little bit. But I do think if you are a big enjoyer of all things discard, you probably can't go wrong with Bullseye. He just seems like a great addition to the archetype that is going to maybe let it see a bit more variety and success out of the traditional Dracula builds, which that is pretty much exactly the kind of thing I was hoping for. So yeah, let me know what you think about Bullseye in the comments below. Are you picking this card up? Are you passing on it? Are you not sure? I'd love to hear it. That's going to wrap it up for this video, though. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.